The night felt strange from the very beginning, because the restaurant was full of soft music and warm lights. Yet something in the air carried a feeling of coming trouble, and Elena, the quiet waitress, felt it the moment she stepped onto the floor. Carrying her first tray of the evening, although she could not explain why she felt this heavy pull inside her chest, she moved between tables with a polite smile, because she always believed kindness mattered no matter who the guest was, and no matter how tired she felt, and tonight she had already served 3 large groups without a single complaint, and the manager had even given her a small nod of approval, which always made her feel calm and steady. But everything shifted when the glass elevator opened at the far end of the rooftop, and a tall man in an expensive suit stepped out with a woman holding his arm, and the moment they appeared, every head in the restaurant turned at once, because both of them looked like the type of people who loved attention and expected everyone to notice them. The man was Adrian, a well-known CEO in the city, and his girlfriend Vanessa walked beside him like she owned the place, her silver dress shining under the lights, and her sharp eyes scanning the room for something to complain about even before she sat down. And Elena felt a small wave of worry as she approached their table, because she could already sense that this woman was not here for a peaceful evening. Elena greeted them with her usual gentle voice and asked if she could bring them some water and a menu, but Vanessa did not even look at her. Instead, she clicked her tongue and said the table was too close to the window, and the chair felt uncomfortable, and even the candle on the table looked cheap, and she asked Adrian why he had chosen such a place for dinner tonight, and her voice was loud enough that nearby guests turned their heads. Adrian tried to calm her, but he looked tired, as if he had been dealing with this all day, and Elena simply offered to move the candle and adjust the chair, hoping it would help. Yet Vanessa kept staring at her with an expression that felt cold and insulting, and Elena wondered if she had done something wrong, even though she knew she had not. When Elena brought the water, Vanessa raised her eyebrow and said the glass looked dirty, even though it was perfectly clear, and then she accused Elena of walking too slowly and acting like she did not care about good service, and she asked if Elena even knew how to work in a place of this level, and her voice carried so much disrespect that several guests nearby went quiet. Elena stayed calm because she had learned through many long nights that reacting made things worse, and so she apologized softly and offered to replace the glass. But Vanessa leaned forward and whispered something cruel about poor people working simple jobs, and Elena felt her heart pinch, but she did not let it show on her face. The manager noticed the tension and walked over, asking if everything was all right, but Vanessa cut him off, saying she would file a complaint if he did not train his staff properly, and Adrian shifted uncomfortably in his seat, while Elena lowered her eyes and stepped back, trying to keep the peace, even as humiliation pooled inside her chest. When Elena returned to take their order, Vanessa pushed her wine glass toward her so roughly that red wine splashed across Elena's apron and onto her hand, and the restaurant fell silent again as Elena stared at the stain on her uniform, while Vanessa smirked and said she should be more careful because good restaurants do not keep clumsy staff. Even then, Elena did not raise her voice. She simply nodded and walked away to clean the mess. Yet something unusual happened as she turned, because she felt someone watching her, not with pity and not with judgment, but with a strong, focused gaze that almost felt like silent support. At a table near the corner sat a man no one recognized at first glance, a man in a dark suit with a calm face and sharp eyes, and he watched Elena with a steady expression that suggested he had seen everything and did not like a single moment of it. Elena saw him only for a second before she looked away, but in that second she felt something strange, like this man was not just another guest, and the room carried a hidden tension, because even though Vanessa continued talking loudly, many people kept glancing toward the corner table, wondering who the man was and why he looked so serious. The night was far from over, and Elena felt it deep in her stomach, because Vanessa had only just begun her cruel game, and no one in the restaurant knew that this quiet waitress was not who she appeared to be, and no one knew that the man in the corner was about to change everything with a single decision. Tension inside the restaurant grew heavier the moment Elena returned with a clean apron, because everyone sensed that Vanessa was not finished yet tonight. She walked carefully toward their table with steady hands, while several guests watched her with quiet worry because they feared Vanessa would explode again tonight. Vanessa leaned back in her chair with a smirk that showed she enjoyed every second of this strange power she held over Elena that night. Before Elena could speak, Vanessa tapped her fingers on the table and said she wanted a special drink, prepared faster than last time, right? Now Elena nodded slowly, even though her heart felt heavy because she did not understand why Vanessa kept attacking her without any reason that night. Here, as she turned to leave, Vanessa whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear, calling Elena slow, weak, and unfit for a high class. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, and a few even shifted in their seats because the atmosphere felt too sharp, like a storm waiting to break. In the corner, the mysterious man kept watching everything with calm eyes and a firm jaw, as if he understood something hidden that no one. Elena walked to the bar to prepare the drink, and her coworker whispered, asking if she was okay, but Elena simply smiled and said even though she looked calm inside, her chest felt tight because she knew Vanessa would keep pushing until something finally snapped, and she feared what. When she returned to the table, Vanessa crossed her arms and complained the drink smelled wrong even before tasting it, and she demanded Elena redo. Elena offered to bring a fresh one, but Vanessa kept talking, loudly blaming her for ruining the evening and calling her a useless worker tonight. Guests could feel the cruelty in every word, and some even whispered that the situation was getting out of control. Yet no one dared anymore. Adrian finally leaned forward, looking stressed as he asked Vanessa to calm down, but she ignored him completely and focused only on tearing Elena apart. Elena stood there holding the tray with steady hands while inside she wished the moment would pass quickly, yet she knew Vanessa wanted to drag. Then something unexpected happened as the mysterious man slowly rose from his chair and began walking toward their table, making several guests hold their breaths. Vanessa glanced at him with annoyance because she thought he was another guest coming to complain, but she had no idea who he truly was. Elena noticed him too, and her face turned pale because she never wanted him involved, and she prayed silently that he would sit back quietly. But he continued approaching with a slow, determined step, and the entire restaurant could feel the tension rising as if something enormous was about to. Vanessa rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed that another person dared to come near her table, and she spoke loudly, asking if he needed help finding the man stopped right beside Elena, and the entire room froze because everyone sensed something important was about to happen, and no one wanted to. Elena felt a wave of fear rush through her because she knew this was the moment she had hoped to avoid, yet destiny seemed ready. Vanessa raised an eyebrow and laughed softly because she believed nothing this man could say would matter, and she did not see the danger in. Adrian swallowed nervously because even he sensed something powerful in the air, and he wondered if this stranger knew Elena or if something deeper was. The man finally turned toward Vanessa with a calm, steady gaze that made her shift uncomfortably. Though she tried to hide it behind a forced, Elena wished he would walk away and let her handle everything alone. But the moment had already passed and the truth was stepping into the light. Vanessa smirked again, thinking she still controlled the situation, yet a few guests began whispering because they sensed the balance shifting, and they waited for Elena, stood frozen, torn between fear and relief, because she knew the truth could end the humiliation or make the night even darker, depending on the man. Drew a slow breath as if gathering strength, and every pair of eyes in the restaurant locked on him, waiting for the first. Elena felt her heartbeat race, and she wished she could disappear, yet she also felt a strange comfort knowing someone finally stood up, even if the room fell so quiet that even the soft music felt distant, and every person waited for the next moment, knowing the entire night was. And as the man finally opened his mouth to speak, the world seemed to hold its breath. because this single moment would shape everything tonight. The restaurant stayed silent as the mysterious man stood beside Elena, because everyone sensed that something powerful was moving in the shadows, and no one dared to speak while Vanessa looked annoyed, as if the world was wasting her precious time. Though she had no idea what storm she had just invited toward herself tonight, Elena felt her heart tremble because she knew the man recognized her even from across the room, and she prayed he would stay silent, but the night seemed determined to pull secrets into the open, and the truth felt closer with every breath she took while her hands shook lightly behind the tray she held carefully. The mysterious man kept his calm expression while watching Vanessa, who stared back with bold confidence. Even though she felt a strange pressure around her, like she was standing on thin ice, and every step she took made a new crack form beneath her, but she chose to ignore it because she believed she simply could not lose. Adrian shifted in his seat because he noticed the tension growing stronger between the stranger and his girlfriend, and he felt a wave of embarrassment rise inside him. But he still stayed silent, hoping the moment would pass because he did not want a public scene yet. He secretly feared that one might be impossible to avoid. Vanessa tossed her hair and asked Elena why she brought another stranger to the table, and her voice carried a cruel tone that made several guests gasp quietly while the mysterious man raised one eyebrow as if studying the weight of her words and deciding what kind of person would speak to someone with such disrespect. Elena tried to step forward to calm the moment, but the mysterious man gently touched her arm and shook his head with a silent message that said she should not carry this burden tonight, and she felt her chest tighten because she understood he was no longer willing to watch her suffer alone under Vanessa's cruelty. Vanessa noticed the gesture and laughed loudly because she believed Elena and the stranger were nothing but simple workers trying to act important, and she even clapped her hands once as she mocked the idea of them having any real influence, which made the room grow even colder as several guests exchanged frightened glances. The mysterious man finally spoke, though his voice remained soft and calm, asking Vanessa why she spoke with so much anger toward someone who had shown nothing but patience tonight. And Vanessa rolled her eyes, saying she had the right to speak however she wanted, because she paid for service and expected perfection at all times. Words echoed across the rooftop as if bouncing from one wall to another, and the man's expression darkened slightly, though he kept his voice measured as he told her that kindness cost nothing and respect should never depend on wealth or power, and his words made many guests nod gently even if they stayed silent. Vanessa smirked again and asked what business he had teaching her manners when he clearly did not know who she was, and she bragged about being connected to important people in the city, believing this made her untouchable, while the mysterious man watched her with eyes that held a deep knowing she could not understand. Elena wanted to stop him from speaking further because she knew once the truth left his mouth, nothing would ever be the same again, and Vanessa would crumble under the weight of reality. But Elena still hoped to protect the peace even when she felt bruised inside from the endless insults she had suffered throughout the night. Man took one step closer, and the air tightened around them as though the restaurant itself leaned forward to hear the next words that would shape the night. And Elena held her breath while Vanessa crossed her arms, proudly, still believing she controlled every thread of the situation without realizing how close she stood to humiliation. Adrian placed a hand on Vanessa's arm in a weak attempt to calm her, but she shrugged him off and told him not to interfere because she wanted to deal with the stranger herself, and she spoke with a sharp voice that sliced through the quiet air like a cold blade. The mysterious man turned his head slightly toward Elena and gave her a look filled with silent apology, because he knew she wanted to avoid this, but he also knew he could not stand by any longer while she faced cruelty from someone who lacked even a grain of humility. Elena felt tears gather behind her eyes, though she forced herself to breathe steadily because she did not want the restaurant to see her break, and she wanted to keep her dignity, even if the night tested her patience in ways she had never experienced before in her life. Guests leaned forward in their seats because they sensed the climax approaching, and their curiosity now burned brighter than the candles on their tables as they waited for the truth to step into the light that hovered just inches away from the edge of the moment. The mysterious man finally lifted his chin and spoke again with a calm, steady voice that carried far across the room, telling Vanessa that the way she treated people revealed her true worth far more than any dress or money ever could. And his message cut straight through the tension like a blade made of truth. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, hoping this would end soon, but she knew the night was only beginning to reveal its deepest secrets the moment the mysterious man finished speaking. The entire restaurant felt even heavier because everyone could sense that Vanessa was reaching the point where her temper might explode, and Elena felt a cold wave move through her body as she prayed silently that the situation would not turn uglier than it already was tonight. Vanessa let out a sharp laugh that echoed across the room, and she asked the mysterious man if he thought he was some kind of hero trying to defend a weak little waitress, and she waved her hand toward Elena as if she were pointing at an object and not a person, and her voice carried such arrogance that several guests flinched. The mysterious man did not move, and he did not show anger, but his eyes hardened with a calm warning that only a few people in the room recognized, while Elena felt her heart shake because she could sense something hidden in that stare, something she hoped Vanessa would never discover tonight. Adrian finally spoke again, asking Vanessa softly to sit down and calm herself. But she snapped at him, telling him to stay quiet and let her handle this, because she refused to be embarrassed in front of strangers, and her tone made Adrian shrink back into his chair, feeling smaller than ever as the room continued to watch. In tense silence, Elena tried again to step in, but the mysterious man gently reached out his arm, stopping her from interfering, and she knew then that he had decided to end the cruelty, even if she still wished he could walk away and leave her to manage the situation alone, as she always did with difficult customers. Vanessa turned her full attention to Elena with eyes filled with poison, and she demanded that Elena apologize for ruining her night and making her look foolish, and she claimed the restaurant should fire Elena immediately for her incompetence and lack of class, and her voice struck the air like sharp stones that made everyone freeze. Elena stood quietly with her hands clasped together while she felt a deep ache inside. But she refused to break because she never wanted to give Vanessa that victory, and she breathed slowly to steady herself, even though Vanessa's words kept hitting her like waves, trying to knock her down again and again. The mysterious man stepped closer and asked Vanessa what exactly Elena had done wrong tonight besides serve politely and remain patient and calm and respectful, and his voice carried so much quiet strength that Vanessa hesitated for just a moment, though she quickly masked it with another cruel smirk. She claimed Elena had been slow, rude, and unprofessional, even though the entire restaurant knew she was lying, and people exchanged uncomfortable looks because they knew Vanessa was digging herself deeper and deeper into a hole she would never escape once the truth finally came out. Vanessa picked up the dessert plate that Elena had brought earlier, and without warning she pushed it off the table, sending it crashing to the floor with a loud shatter that made several guests gasp as the broken pieces scattered across the tiles like tiny shards of tension. Elena instinctively bent down to clean the mess, but the mysterious man stopped her again and shook his head firmly, and she understood that this was no longer a matter of customer service, but a moment where truth and respect needed to be defended, even if she hated the spotlight that was now falling on her. The manager rushed forward with panic in his eyes, asking what happened, but Vanessa pointed at Elena and accused her of dropping the plate on purpose and trying to embarrass her, and her voice grew louder and louder until even the soft music in the background felt like it was hiding behind her noise. The mysterious man looked directly at the manager and said calmly that he had seen everything and that Elena had done nothing wrong, and his words carried such authority that the manager fell silent, as if he recognized the tone of someone far above his position. Vanessa rolled her eyes again, claiming the stranger was lying to help Elena, but the tension in the room told everyone that she had crossed a line that could not be ignored. Any more? Adrian whispered Vanessa's name, trying one last time to restrain her because he could sense the danger building around them. Yet she pushed his hand away and snapped at him to be quiet because she believed she still held control over the night. Mysterious man slowly turned his gaze toward her with an expression so cold and steady that Vanessa finally felt a flicker of fear inside her, even though she refused to admit it, and she told herself she had nothing to worry about because he looked like an ordinary man in an ordinary suit, and she believed she could still win. Elena stood frozen because she knew the truth was only one step away from being revealed, and she feared the moment even though she also hoped for it, because she was tired of hiding and tired of letting people treat her as less than she truly was. The guests leaned forward as if drawn by invisible strings, because the air felt ready to break, and everyone waited for the mysterious man to speak again, knowing that whatever came next would change the night forever. And in that breathless moment, the mysterious man finally prepared to reveal the truth that Vanessa never saw coming and Elena never wanted exposed, but fate was already moving, and no one in the restaurant could stop what was about to unfold, even if they tried. The air inside the restaurant felt like it had completely stopped moving, as every person stared at the mysterious man, waiting for him to take the next step, because everyone sensed the truth standing just behind his calm eyes like a powerful wave, ready to rise and break. Vanessa folded her arms and lifted her chin with a smug smile, because she believed she had won again, and she believed the stranger would soon walk away, defeated by her loud confidence, even though her voice trembled slightly. In the back of her throat, Elena stood completely still beside him, wanting desperately to pull him aside and whisper for him to stop, because she feared what would happen if Vanessa discovered who he really was. But the night had already pushed too far, and the time for hiding had finally passed. The mysterious man glanced at Elena with a soft look that carried both apology and promise, and then he stepped forward, one slow step at a time, until he stood right in front of Vanessa, who stared at him with annoyance mixed with rising fear. She could not name. Guests leaned closer without moving from their seats, because they felt the edge of a secret pressing into the room, like a shadow ready to reveal its shape, and several people held their breath as the mysterious man raised his voice slightly so the entire restaurant could hear. He asked Vanessa one quiet question: why she believed she could treat people like they were less than her, and his words floated softly yet carried a weight so heavy that Vanessa instinctively shrank back, though she tried to hide it with a mocking laugh. She told him she did not need advice from strangers who knew nothing about her life, and she bragged again about her connections and her wealth and her influence, and she claimed that no simple man would ever understand her standards. Around the room, people exchanged knowing glances, because the more she spoke, the more obvious her blindness became, and Elena felt a sad ache inside her chest, but also a small spark of hope, because she knew the truth would finally bring an end to this night of cruelty. Mysterious man drew in a long breath, and then he spoke, his voice steady and firm and clear, as he said that he was not just a simple man passing through the restaurant, and that he had every right to stand here because this place belonged to him. Vanessa blinked in shock and then laughed again, insisting he was lying because he looked too ordinary to be anyone important, and she waved her hands dramatically as she claimed the restaurant was far too expensive for someone like him to own. The manager stepped forward, nervously shaking as he bowed slightly toward the mysterious man, which made everyone gasp softly because it confirmed the words that Vanessa wanted to reject, and Elena felt her heartbeat speed up as the truth walked closer and closer. Vanessa stared at the manager, demanding to know why he bowed, and the manager answered with a trembling voice, saying that the mysterious man was none other than Gabriel Halle, the owner of the restaurant and of dozens of others across the city. A loud wave of whispers rushed through the crowd as people recognized the name, because Gabriel Halle was known in business circles for his fortune and his quiet leadership, though he rarely appeared in public and most people never saw him in person. Vanessa froze like a statue, her face draining of confidence as she took a small step backward, because everything inside her crumbled with the realization that she had insulted and mocked someone far above the people she bragged about knowing. Gabriel continued speaking, and his voice grew slightly sharper as he said that he had been watching the entire evening, and he found Vanessa's behavior toward Elena cruel, unnecessary, and unacceptable, and he made it clear that he would not allow such treatment inside any place he owned. Elena's heart squeezed with a mix of fear and relief because she never wanted Gabriel to reveal himself, yet a part of her felt grateful that someone finally stood up for her after all the harsh words Vanessa had thrown without mercy. Vanessa tried to recover her voice and quickly claimed that Elena was at fault and that Elena had been disrespectful and unprofessional, but Gabriel shook his head once and said firmly that Elena had shown more grace and strength tonight than Vanessa had shown in her entire time here. Adrian lowered his head in embarrassment because he realized he should have defended Elena earlier, and he felt ashamed for allowing Vanessa to control the situation while he stayed silent, and he whispered a weak apology that barely reached Elena's ears. Gabriel then revealed something that struck the entire room like thunder when he said that Elena was not only an employee but also his business partner and a major investor in the Hale Group, a detail he had kept private because Elena preferred a quiet life far away from attention. Gasps burst across the tables because no one expected the humble waitress to hold such power, and Vanessa stumbled backward, grabbing the edge of the table to keep from falling as her confidence vanished completely, leaving only fear and shock behind. Elena stood quietly with her eyes lowered because she never wanted to embarrass Vanessa even after everything, yet the truth had been spoken, and the night had changed forever, and every person now looked at her with new respect. And as the restaurant waited breathlessly for what would come next, Gabriel turned his gaze back to Vanessa, ready to deliver the final words that would end the chaos she had created and restore dignity to the person she tried so hard to break.